During this video, I'm going to show you the basics of ReportLab for Python. So the ReportLab library is an open source PDF library. The links here, I'm going to show you quickly if you Google ReportLab open source, you'll find it pretty quickly. And clicking on there on that first link will give you the options for downloading documentation, which is very well written, some case studies. It's all here. Now, before I proceed with writing some code, I want to make it clear what I'm doing here is really the basics of ReportLab. It's quite extensive in what you can do with this thing. But at the same time, I found that doing, the relatively simple stuff, but useful stuff, is really not much of a learning curve to it. I found it very easy to use, logical, and I think you will too. So I did read quite a few tutorials out there on the internet that recommended other modules to use for writing reports, generating PDF reports in Python because they claimed there was a steeper learning curve with ReportLab, but I gotta tell you, it's really pretty simple to use and it can do pretty much anything you'd need it to do. So just go right to ReportLab and use their open source library for Python. So again, what does it do? It creates PDFs. And it's not simply creating the PDF file, of course, it's populating the PDF file with whatever you choose. In our case, we're going to populate the PDF page with a few things, some static text, some dynamic text that we're going to be importing from a CSV file, and also an image. So as I jump over to my my code editor here on the right, want to kind of show you here, actually before I get started and clear my screen there, my terminal. So here in the upper left window, I've got some files. So this is the main.py file that I'm going to be using. That's going to be where my script resides. This is what's in there right now, just some comments up on the top. From there, we've got a data.csv file, and in it I just populated some text data. So first thing there is a last name, then a first name, and then a course name. Okay, so the example that I'm going to use for ReportLab to show you how ReportLab works is I'm going to generate course completion certificates. So you go to a class or something and do something, take a test or whatever, and you get or just show up and make it through. You'll get a certificate of completion at the end. So imagine if you have a scenario where you needed to generate hundreds or even thousands of certificates based on data you might get in an Excel spreadsheet or a CSV file, comma separated value file, or any type of text file. ReportLab would be, and Python would be a great way to generate those certificates. I just completed a project where we had almost 6,000 certificates that I needed to generate with the basic script that I'm going to show you here in a moment. We're going to build with using the same types of methods. I was able to do that, and whenever I run that script, it generates just under 6,000 certificates. It generates them in literally 10 seconds. It's really fast. So again, we got our data file. This is going to be what we read into our Python script, and then our Python script is going to use the ReportLab module to generate PDFs dynamically, and it's all going to get saved to this directory here. This is what our final output will look like. This is one of the, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 certificates that we'll be generating. Okay. And so I open that up and I make it a little smaller so that you can see it. this is what it looks like. So this is going to be some static text. You'll see we'll supply this string directly. Same thing here. This here is going to be from the CSV file, and same as this here from the CSV file. So again, we have the first and last name. And actually, looking at this, when I generated this, it probably got these backwards. It should have been Joseph Davis instead of Davis Joseph, but you get the idea. And then down below here, we're just going to stick a simple image that I grabbed off the internet. And I imagine you could use a logo or whatever you're using for your projects if you're going to do something similar. In my case, when I've used this in the real world, used ReportLab, I've always used logos. I've put header images up here and down below and so forth. All right, so let's get started. So I'm going to go to going to open up a new file here. I'm going to name it main.py. I've already got it saved here, and I'm going to start off with some imports. I'm going to start off with well, first off, I've already got ReportLab installed in my Python environment. If you don't, you will need to do that. Okay, again, the URL is up here. All right, so there's a number of imports you got to start off with, and this is all in the documentation. The documentation is really well written, and you can just follow it along. So I'm going to start with from ReportLab.pdfgen. So that's the library that we're going to use first, or specifically the Canvas class in that library. So and actually, if I recall correctly, it's a lowercase c. So the Canvas is basically our PDF object. Okay, so that's going to be what we call when we add text, add images, and so forth, as you'll see in a little bit. Then we're going to do some more imports from ReportLab. We're going to import the lib and then page sizes. And then we're going to specifically import the letter page size class. And same thing in our case, okay, certificates. If you recall from the certificate example I showed you here, it's in actually landscape format. Okay, this can be a little confusing at first, but basically ReportLab supports a number of different page sizes, page types like A4 and letter, and you'll get a whole bunch of them, and you can see them and see the list in the documentation. For our case here, since I'm creating landscape certificates for my PDFs, I need both the letter and the landscape page sizes, and so we'll go ahead and import those. And then also, because we're importing an image and going to use that, we're going to and this is where again you want to consult the documentation, but there's a platypus part of the module there. So we're going to, from the import, the ReportLab.platypus, we're going to import image with a capital I. And then lastly, and this has nothing to do with ReportLab, but it's just makes a lot more sense for the example we're using to generate course of certificate of completion certificates for a course. But I imagine in a lot of cases, if you're using ReportLab, you're going to be doing it by importing data. So in our case, we're using a CSV file, very simple data. So we're going to import the CSV module into Python as well. All right, so with that out of the way, now we're going to go ahead and start with a variable for our data file. And I believe it is called, there it is, data.csv. So we're going to use that to pass into a method for for importing that data, and we'll do that now. So we're going to define a new method, and I'll just call it import data, and I'll pass to it that data file variable, which is just a path. And so what we're going to do, what I'll do here is I'll just call it attendee data. You can call it anything you like, and I'm going to read in that data file's contents. So I'm going to be csv.reader, and we're going to use the RB, so we don't need to write to that file. All right, so again, what we're doing here, basic, straightforward Python. If you've ever read in any type of text or any file contents, you're probably familiar with that. So we've got our handle, which is attendee data. And so next step is we're going to read it in row by row. So for row in attendee data. And what we're going to do now is we're going to start assigning handles to the values in that CSV file. So if we look back at the CSV file, there's the first one is the last name, then the first name, and then the last value per row is the course name, if you will. So for each row, okay, we're going to first bring in the last name, and this is when you're reading in data like this using the CSV module. It's each field, each comma separated value is starts with 0 index, like kind of like any list or array in other languages, right? So last name is going to be row and at the first index, and then first name row 1, and then the course name will be row 2. Okay, so we've established. So what we're doing now is just populating those three. You'll see my coding style is a little more verbose than it probably needs to be. Probably not as Pythonic as it should be, but I find it works for me, and I find it from when I help other people out, they seem to be able to read my style a little easier than just in the next line as we go for the next few lines of code when we start populating this stuff instead of just going right to row 2 and so forth. I just find it easier. It's just more readable for me. Feel free to do what you like though. PDF file name is going to be our next thing here. So we're going to give right now all we're doing is importing the data, but the next step after we do the import of the data and assign the elements in the CSV to these different variable names, last name, first name, and so forth, we're going to pass that information to a new function or method that's going to be called generate certificate. We'll call it that. And so it's going to generate certificate based on the data passed to it, and this stuff is what we're going to pass. And one of the things I'm passing here now, and I could probably just kind of do it within that function, but we'll do it now, is the PDF file name. And so I'm just going to, and this is what's going to show up here. Okay, so looking at this example I put together before I started recording here, I used the course name and then an underscore and then last name and then first name, and I probably should have put a .pdf in there, but I didn't, so we'll do it, make sure to do that here now. So we'll do course name plus, and I'm using underscore, it could be a space or anything you like there. And then we'll do last name, and then we will do a .pdf. Okay, so that it'll be obvious to anyone that sees the file that it's a PDF. They need, Acrobat or some other PDF reading utility to open it. So that's it for that. Actually, you know what? We didn't. We need to. So now we've read in the row, okay? And so now the next thing we need to do, we're going to call another function that hasn't been created yet, but it's called generate certificate. And we're going to pass to it the first name, the last name, the course name, and the PDF file name. Okay? And so now we'll go ahead and create that that function. And what's it take as parameters? You guessed it, first name, last name, course name, and the PDF file name. Oops. And this is where we start working with ReportLab, okay? And it's really pretty easy and straightforward once you learn the basics here. So first thing we're going to do is I'm actually, just to simplify things, I'm going to create a new variable in here called attendee name, which is really their full name. So it's going to be their first name and then a space concatenated between first name and last name. You'll see why I'm doing this in a little bit. Just makes it a little more straightforward when I go to populate the PDF with their name. So first thing we want to do is I'll just call it C, which is our canvas object. Canvas, think of canvas as the PDF file. Okay, so C equals canvas, if I can type it, dot canvas. And then what you need to supply that method, again, this is all in the ReportLab documentation. What you need to supply it is a file name, which is our PDF file name that we provided as part of the parameters here. And then we'll give it, we also need to give it a page size. So what type of page size are we looking at? We're looking at landscape, and I forget the exact reason for this, but it's not as simple as just saying landscape, but because of the apparently numerous different types of page sizes and page names and references and so forth, we also need to provide this letter parameter when the landscape value here is called. So as long as you type it in as I've typed it in here, then you'll be okay. Again, in the ReportLab doc, there is all the info you need on what type of page sizes. If you're just doing a standard portrait, for example, all the different sizes are in there, and you can look them up. So we've got our object. It's just C here. So that's a reference, a handle to our canvas. Okay, canvas is a PDF file. We're going to, for our example here, we're going to generate one page per PDF file, so one certificate. No reason why we couldn't create a 50-page PDF. It's really, you'll see why it's pretty straightforward here in how to do that. So first thing I'll do is some header text. And if we open up our example certificate, this is what I'm referring to when I say header text. So just certificate of completion. So to do that, we just, before I do that, I want to show you one little trick, which is you'll notice in that example here that the text all had different fonts. So that's something that you'll want to know how to do. So it's just easy. It's set font method. Okay, and in there you can pass to it the font that you want. Again, these are fonts that have to be installed on your system, and there are ways, and you'll see this in the ReportLab documentation. You'll see how to find out, what fonts are installed on your system. I believe it's in there. If not, look up, for your operating system. You'll be able to find out what fonts are available to you. I'm going to use Helvetica because it's installed on my system here, and it looks good. So first you give it the exact name of the font, and then you give it a size. That's really what you want to look at. And then you also have to put in a leading value for it, which I believe is, I've always just set it to none. It is required, I believe, so that's why I put it in there. I believe it's just how many lines, how many not lines, if you will, but how many objects on the page before this should take effect. Okay, I keep things simple and just set it. I don't try to guess ahead. I just set it to when I need it. So I've set my font to Helvetica. I've set it to size 48, and now I'm going to use a method to actually create that certificate of completion text. And you'll see there's a couple of methods for this, for drawing these strings, if you will. One is just draw string, okay, but if you do that, then you've got to supply specific coordinates of where the string should start and end. Okay, this is by coordinates, I mean X and Y. Okay, and this can get very tricky. I'm not going to go into it because it's basically going to be trial and error for you if you're going to have to go that route, and we will a little bit when we use this image in a little bit, when we populate the PDF with that. But after spending probably an hour goofing around trying to get everything aligned just perfectly, that's when I read the doc and I learned that there is a draw centered string method, which works really well and is much easier than trying to get everything perfectly aligned. So I urge you to use that if you can, if it makes sense for you. So in my case, I'm going to center it at 415, and by centered meaning centered, you give it a center point. You don't have to guess at the length of the width of the string and align it that way. So so I'm going to go about 415, and it's not pixels. I believe it's actually 1/72nd of an inch. I can't remember for sure, but play with it and you'll see, or read the doc, you'll see. So I'm going to go 415 and then 500. So the X is 415, Y is 500. Here's something that's not obvious at first from the documentation. That's 500 from the bottom of the page. Okay, so 0 is at the very bottom. The higher you go with the number, the higher up. So very important to remember that, or you won't, like I didn't at first, and you'll figure it out. So I'll just call this certificate of completion, and then the next thing we'll populate our certificate with is we'll just do some more static text for now. Draw centered string, and we'll do 415, 450. So it's about 50 points. Notice I didn't say pixels, or I guess 50 1/72 of an inches lower. Okay, and we'll just say this certificate is presented to, and then I guess I could put a colon there. And one thing I didn't do, which I think looks a little better, I'll do that now, is I'm going to set the font to make this text be a little smaller than this text. So this text up here is at 48. We'll do this one. We'll do it at let's go 24. Okay. All right. So we've got of our certificate, we've got this text and we got this text, and now the next part here is the name of the attendee. So I'll just put in a comment there, separate those. Attendee name. So we're going to, again, we'll set the font. Probably want to make it a little different to stand out. I'm going to use Helvetica Bold, which is on my system. And I guess 34. Do 34 for the font size. And then again, leading equals none. And now we're going to draw centered image, centered string, and I'm going to say, well, it's definitely 415. So 415, if you were wondering, that is basically splitting the middle of my landscape page here, right in the middle. And then how high up? I'm going to guess around 50 to 60 below my static text here. So we'll just to kind of middle that, we'll do 395. And then so there's our X and our Y coordinates we have to pass. And then lastly, we'll pass the attendee name, which is why I created that up here. So that's the first name plus a space, and then the last name concatenated together. All right, next thing is some more static text. If I remember correctly, we had, look, what is it, for completing the Algebra 101 course or whatever. I don't suggest you create certificates that are this bland and ugly looking, but you know, for our purposes here, this will work for learning the ReportLab library. All right, so we'll do, again, we'll set the font back to just plain Helvetica in my case, and then we'll do, I guess, 24, probably the same as the one earlier. And we'll call this for completing the following course. Do that. That sounds a little better than just for completing the. And then we'll again draw centered string 415, splitting it right down. You make sure it's aligned in the middle. And then about I guess about 350. And then we'll oh, and I made a mistake. I don't know why I started doing that there, but it's actually leading equals none there. Boom. Sorry about that. Yeah, I put in my last parameter for the string. I put the string parameter up here in the font error method, which you definitely don't want to do. So we've done that, and now the last thing, actually two things. We want to add in the course name onto the certificate, right? And then after that, we're going to put a little image, like a seal. Yeah, this seal.png. So course name, again, set the font. Mainly doing this to set the font size, and we're going to go, guess we'll do 20, a little smaller. And then the last thing is to draw our centered string, and you already know how to do that by now. So 415, and then this, I guess, about 310, a little lower there. And then our course name variable. Again, all red, that's red from the CSV file. And then the last thing we're going to put is our image here. We want that to show up on the bottom of the certificate. So we'll just image of seal, we'll call it. And seal equals seal.png. And I don't recall, I've used JPEG, JPG, and PNG without problems. I do recall in the ReportLab documentation they recommend that you might have to install an image handling library of some sort with your Python environment. I don't remember having to do that, but you may have to if PNGs give you a problem. But I'm not going to get into that here. So there's the path to our image, and now we're going to use a new method, which is draw image. Okay. Unfortunately, there is no draw centered image method, so our function. So you're going to have to align this yourself, and that can take a little bit of trial and error. I'm pretty good with it on my page here because I've been working with creating these certificates now a few times, so I already know the coordinates and so that I want to use. So I'm going to go about 350 in and 50 above the bottom of the page. That 350 is the left side of this this image file, of this image. It's that left side, so that's why I didn't do 415 like I did with all of the strings. So 350, about 50 above from the bottom of the page, and then we have to supply width and height variables. That's if you want to resize the image. Okay, so if you want it dynamically resized, you'll supply them here. In my case, I just want them. I want it left alone. I want to just read the image in and place it on the PDF. So I'm going to use none for my values there. All right, so we've populated our page with our PDF. We've said what we want on the PDF page, but we haven't actually saved it yet. So that is done through the show page, which probably not the greatest method in terms of name. But what that does is it doesn't show anything. What it does is it completes the page. It takes all of this stuff we've done, it renders it onto the page, and then it closes out that page and starts a new page. Okay? Very important to understand that. So say I wanted 5 different pages, then all within one PDF file. Then I could do this, and then below this I could type in the c.show page, and then that would start a new page. So only this text would show up on that first page. Okay, that doesn't make any sense for the example I'm using, so I'm not going to do it here, but you may have a multi-page document you need to generate. So now once we've completed the page, okay, we've locked that page, if you will, and the next and last step really is to save it. So we're going to save the file, and this is going to save, really it would save all of our pages if we had multiple pages to a PDF file. In this case, we've just got the one, since we're only calling the show page method one time throughout, and so we're good to go there. Let me get rid of my image seal comment from earlier that I'd pre-populated for you. We're done. We got one last method to call, which is to kick this thing off. Which is to call this import data method, which then calls the generate certificate method for each row in the in the CSV file. So I'm just going to call import data, and then I'll pass to it that data file path variable, which is right here. I'll save that. Okay, I'm going to go to my terminal. First thing, I'm going to delete this in there. I don't have to. It would just overwrite it if we didn't. And I'm going to I'm going to Python main.py run this, and what we should see, if I typed everything correctly and no typos, which will be a miracle, we'll see, I believe it was 4 values in their data CSV. Yep, 4 values. So we should see 4 certificates. So let's give it a try and see what happens. And nothing happened. Python main.py, and I see nothing here. So what did we do wrong? So we've got our save, importing CSV, data.csv, we got that. Let's try it once more. No. I see. So the problem is I didn't close my parentheses here, and so that is odd that it didn't throw an error, but it didn't. So make sure you put in, if you're following along, creating your own file, make sure you put in the parentheses there. So with that, let's try this again. And what do we got? Another error. Line 44. Draw centered string. Oh, I didn't save it from before. Now let's try it after making that change. And we got now line 59. Import data. File main. Draw image takes at least 4 arguments. 5 given. See that draw image 350, 50 width, height. You know what? We needed to give it a. We need to start off. That's right. We need to start off with giving it. I forgot to give it the path to the image. So let's call it seal there. Save that, and I think this will work now. And there it goes. So one thing I did add, I didn't show this, I paused the recording to try to figure out where that parentheses, so figure out that parentheses problem. To do that, I put in a little kind of debugging little line here just to type writing. That's why you saw writing, so it just did that once for each certificate. So now you see how fast that generated these 4 certificates, and I'm not kidding when I say I've created some scripts that generated more complex PDFs than these, and generated thousands of them in a matter of 10, 20 seconds. So let's look at the you see the file name that each has. I probably should have put a space or something between the last and first name, but you get the idea. So it starts off with the course and then the name. Double click that. We'll make it a little smaller so you could see. And looks pretty good. Certificate of completion to Joseph Davis. Completed the following course, Algebra 101. A little image that's not too pretty, but it'll work for our example. And same thing here. Frank Lee, Applied Physics. Jenny Jones, Basics of Advanced YouTube Usage. So you get the idea. So if you have any questions, you're running any problems, leave a comment, and I can be reached. My site is www.elearninglive.com. Good luck and enjoy the ReportLab library.